I guess to start, my first question is why? Like, why? I think that's the question everybody has. Like, we are not doing enough promo for this film. I did not know it existed, and then it just kind of popped up, and my question is, why? This is so weird. Can we all agree this is weird? Anyway, I'm John Stark from ActorMovieGuy.com. I'm a blind film critic. This is The Killer. But it's not The Killer from last year with Michael Fassbender. This is the new The Killer by John Woo. But it's not his original The Killer. He remade his own movie in English. He, of his own volition, remade his own film years later. Not like shortly thereafter. You know what I'm saying? Like when a film pops, and then sometimes that director gets an opportunity to remake it. No, he waited like his whole career to remake The Killer. So I go back to the question of why? Anyway, this is on Peacock because I think somebody looked at it and they were like, I don't know what to do with this. Do we release it in theaters? Is anybody gonna see this? What do we, and they're like, I think this is why we have streaming services. Okay, well, let's put it on streaming. And it's got the full Universal logo in front of it and everything. Like they were like, oh yeah. And I think the Joel Kinnaman movie hit and it flopped, and they were like, oh man, John Woo just doesn't bring him in like he used to. And I was like, yeah, well, the last movie he did was Paycheck before. So, you know, it's gonna take him a minute, and he's gonna need to have less shitty films to jump back in with. So, yeah, this is so weird, but it's very John Woo. There are birds everywhere. My favorite thing, the audio description was every time they mentioned a bird flying around, I thought about the birds in like all of his other movies. I was like, there's always like a bird. Like the whole Mission Impossible scene with the birds. I was like, oh my god, yes, birds. John Woo loves to just have birds flying around in action sequences. Anyway, this is audio description. I'm going to assume is probably deluxe because I think this is lore post. It had a couple of other people who popped in there and did. It's Peacock, and I can't disable. You cannot. I've checked this. I've asked. You cannot disable the autoplay feature on Peacock currently. I did get it disabled on some other things, so I stopped bitching so much about that stuff. But you cannot disable it on Peacock. They refuse to let you disable it. They're like, no, you're not watching our fucking credits. So yeah, I think it's probably deluxe lore post. William Michael Redmond did some dubbing for some of the characters that speak. That's another thing that's like weird about this is, so he makes an English language film, but then he makes it in Europe where it's a bunch of people who should be speaking in European languages speaking in like English. Like it's not their first language. You know what I'm saying? Like instead of Americanizing it, which could have made sense, like if you're gonna do it, you know? And I don't know, it's instead you've got people who, like Omar Sy is a French actor, but he's speaking in English, and it's very weird. It's like, why are we in Europe? You know, because then you could have remade it for French audiences or Italian audiences or German audiences or whatever. I mean, like, but you remade it in English in Europe with Nathalie Emanuel and Omar Sy and some other people. And I don't know. Like, I really want to hear John Woo do an interview about why he chose to do it and do it this way. It's very intriguing. Is this movie terrible? No, it's not. It's not terrible. I gotta say, I don't have reference for the original The Killer. I didn't actually see that. So I can't completely just be like, oh yeah, of course. You know, so I don't know the differences in the two films. I'm just going to assume that Nathalie Emanuel is not necessarily the same badass action star that probably starred in the original The Killer. So, not that I don't like Nathalie Emanuel. I think she's great, and I love that we keep giving her things and pushing her as a rising star. but we're also giving her things that aren't going well. You know, she was in Arthur the King, kind of bombed at the box office. She's now leading this. It goes straight to streaming at Peacock. So I don't know if this is helping her career at all. It's one of those, you know, I mean, years ago when John Woo was doing this, we had less, you know, secret assassin movies, vengeance plots, revenge things. But it's like, I don't know if you could say that it started, the trend kind of came back with Taken a little bit. And then it really kicked into high gear after John Wick. And then we started getting tons of these films all over the place. Just like they're falling just from the sky. One is probably being released as I'm, you know, they're making one just right now as I'm speaking. So, this just felt like, okay, well, in this market, this is just one of many now. Probably the original one when it was released was more special because it felt somehow different or unique, even though I'm not really sure this is that deviated. It's so weird. I also feel uncomfortable talking about it because I haven't seen the original The Killer. So I don't really know what to say to the people who are coming in and are like, well, what do you say? I'm going to say, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't hate Silent Night, which was the Joel Kinnaman movie. I thought there was some stuff there that was fine, but I didn't think it was great. It's not great John Woo. We're not catching him at the pinnacle of his career. Basically, he came back to direct mediocre movies, which is really disappointing when you think about John Woo as a director and what he is capable of. So I don't know what to do. You know, like it's like, yeah, welcome back, John Woo, one of the most well-known names coming out of a certain time period, and now you're back and you're making films, but they're just kind of like, okay. Yeah, it was fine. It's an action film, so the audio description has an opportunity to really shine, and I thought the audio description was really well done. You know, I'm so, like, I didn't know that this was that's what that was. I honestly didn't even know what it was while I was looking it up. And then I was watching the film and I was like, these birds. It's like somebody's knocking off John Woo. And I was like, didn't John Woo make it? So I looked it up on IMDb. I really don't. I don't watch previews. I just click on shit nowadays. Like, that's how it is. And I can't see, because I'm blind now, I can't even see the little like imagery on the screen when you click on the title. So it's like, you know, it might have said John Woo's The Killer. Who knows? But I was like, this feels very John Woo-y to me. I looked it up on IMDb and I was like, he remade his own movie? I can't get past that. I don't even know what to talk about with this movie because fundamentally, it's like, I realized I should have seen The Killer. But at the same time, I'm presented with what I got. And what I got was Nathalie Emanuel trying to be an action star, which sent me down a little bit of a rabbit hole where I was like, okay, so what do I compare this to? And I kept thinking of Colombiana with Zoe Saldana, which is not really fair because they're two totally different movies. Not the other one's not directed by John Woo. But I really like Colombiana. And I was like, well, if I didn't know what this was, I was like, is this Colombiana? I was like, no, it's not. It's not Colombiana. Nathalie Emanuel Zoe Saldana was somebody who hadn't really done a lot of action movies. And then she came into Colombiana and just kind of, it's the kind of film that got discovered a lot afterwards. Like it did okay at the box office, but I think more people have seen Colombiana now than, it's one of those things like Dread, where you hear people who are like, well, we get a sequel to this. And it's like, just because you guys watch it on home video doesn't necessarily mean we're getting a sequel. So it doesn't feel like that. Like, I don't think Nathalie Emanuel is quite as badass as she thinks she is here, or as the audience or as John Woo wanted her to be. Even though I like her as an actress, I think maybe this is a little bit above her pay grade. the believability factor. She's still just very nice. And I still think about her from like Game of Thrones. And I think about her from obviously like the Fast and Furious franchise. And I don't think about her as being ready to like be a hardened killer. Like there's something about her that still is just very sweet. And Zoe Saldana had that a little bit when she was going into Colombiana. She had done a lot of lighter fare, like the Ashton Kutcher, Bernie Mac movie, Guess Who? Or like Drumline, you know, like, I mean, she had some stuff in there where it's like, is this the right chick for Colombiana? But she kind of made you believe that she was. Here, I don't think Nathalie Emanuel really pulled me in. And I like Omar Sy. I'm glad that he's here and he's doing stuff. I think he's an actor that we have probably failed. You know, he got a lot of praise coming out of The Untouchables. And I think that was the name of the film. Anyway, I'm kind of like, I'm like, that was a... Anyway, the film, yeah. And I know the film I'm talking about, but when I said that out loud, I was like, that's a Sean Connery, Kevin Costner film. But then I was like, I think his film is still that. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go with that. And he got to be in some things, and like he was in an X-Men film, but still I feel like Omar Sy could be doing more too. Like what happened with his career. So I appreciate that John Woo has picked a couple people here that could be doing more and tried to give them stuff, but John Woo should be focused on action stars of today and like what can you do with the people that we have currently? How can you make them look good on screen? Because it's not like we don't have action stars. Pair with them, I don't know, pick up some cool franchise or something, you know, and run with it. But it's so weird to remake your own movie, and it's so many years later. It's like, was he hankering for this? Like, could you imagine instead of like Spike Lee doing the Old Boy remake, if it was, the question would be why? You know, it's like, did you not feel like your first film was fine? That's always the debate around remakes, is what is it that you're going to bring to it? And when you're the original director, it's almost like you're saying, my original wasn't good, and I want to remake it now. But your original was good. That's why you have fans. So every once in a while, we do get one where it's like, okay, we made a case for it, and now it's better. Or we made a case for it and it's at least as good. I know like Infernal Affairs has a lot of fans, but it did become The Departed. So there's something to be, you know, there's something to be said for that. And honestly, Coda, I don't think a lot of people know that that was a French film. So I think Coda probably surpassed its original. I haven't seen the original, but I think most people found out that that was a remake when it was being nominated for Academy Awards. They're like, oh, it's an adapted. Really, that's interesting. From what? Oh, a French movie. Huh. Look at that. You know? So, yeah. It did go on to win Best Picture. So I'm going to say a safe bet on those two that probably they made it. What was John Woo at home all these years going, I could have made it better, The Killer. I'm going to make it better, The Killer, one of these days. And then he saw Nathalie Emanuel and something and was like, oh, she's perfect. I'm going to come out of retirement for this. You know, I'm going to go back to the American audiences and I'm going to remake my own movie with that girl from the Fast and Furious and Game of Thrones. Listen, I don't know what to tell you. The audio description here, super fly. I really enjoyed the action sequences and I think it's really well written. I think it's Laura Post. Laura Post is one of the few people who has the ability to sort of pitch manipulate, meaning that she ends up trying to be right for everything. So she can do kids films well, she can do comedies, she can do action, she can do drama because she can change the pitch in her voice to try to fit the moment. I think this is her. Could also be somebody else. Because it doesn't sound like typical Laura Post, but it does sound like Laura Post trying to do action movie Laura Post. So it's either a different voice or it is Laura Post. It's one of those two things. So yeah, if you want excellent audio description on an action film, Silent Night was one of my top 3 audio described tracks of 2023. This is not going to be that, but it was good. And I mean, so the film is okay. It kind of gives me the same vibes. I don't really know what to do with it because I don't know how to, but I don't hate myself for having seen it, but at the same time, I kind of wonder why it's here. And I do realize it would have been nice if I had seen The Killer. I also didn't think I was going to go blind at 34 and have such a profound, hard time of seeing international features. I didn't think I needed to cram all of them into the first chunk of my life. You know what I'm saying? I thought if I didn't have time to be, most of them don't have English audio description. So, yeah, I will probably never see the original The Killer at the rate we're going. So I will give the remake of The Killer a C. I feel like that's where it is. I gave Silent Night a C+, and I thought that was a little bit more interesting than this, but I don't think this is necessarily bad. I think that, but I'm not really sure it's good either. I just think it's kind of like, well, that happened. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you guys on the other side.